Hi folks, welcome to my Bit Retro Journal. I'm actually playing the Elite game that I wrote for the ZX81, but I actually wrote it for the ZX Simulator. I'm actually trying it out on my Atomic Sinclair 1000 because it shouldn't always be about the QL, and giving this a try to see how it's working. And I've forgotten all the key combos. They're not quite what I remember, but trying to get it into firing range, and there we go. I'm so used to playing it with a joystick that it's harder to play this with ASWD. Uh-oh, it's moving to the side. But this is the computer it was originally written for, even though I didn't initially write it for... oh, come on. To the side, don't go down. Here we go, and then we can do one more. And then see if we can fire. Fire! Oh, and I kind of like how the Atomic Sinclair actually the screen shakes when it hits. So that's sort of unique to the to that machine, and it's still there. There we go. Fire one more. See what the explosion looks like. Yeah, that looks good. Is it gonna? Ah, there it is. Look at that. I got one. Anyways, this is not really what my video is about. This is about Macintosh. It's an event that was organized by some YouTubers to celebrate all things Macintosh from the 80s and 90s. And so this is my preview video. So it's not going to be very long today. It's interesting that I actually had the same idea back in, if you watch one of my December videos, I actually mused about Macintosh. Although the spelling was the same, but my capitalization was a little different. I actually like their capitalization much better. In fact, I had just done Septandy, followed by my creation, which was QL, and we had a small group, but Noel from Noel's Retro Lab joined us, and he did a really nice job with his videos. And then I also participated in December. So at that point, I was like, I don't know, 4 within 6 months might be too many. But then after January and all the craziness that happened in the U.S. and the cold February, I kind of started thinking, oh, maybe we should do it. And somebody else had mentioned March Madness, and so I was trying to organize that, and somebody pointed me to these folks. And I really like how they've organized it. I like their capitalization much better, as they emphasize the entire month of March for Macintosh. And so, yeah, I'm joining in. So my connection with the Macintosh is that I owned a company in the mid-90s called Orchard Software, and it was actually just me. I wrote a bunch of interesting software that kind of tried to bring sort of a Unix flavor to the Macintosh. And there's actually a QL connection to that, because I didn't really have a Unix system, although I used it in college. At home I had the QL, and the QL actually is a very Unix-like operating system once you get past sort of the basic and the graphics. And what I'll do in my videos is I will connect the QL and how it inspired some of my products. So let me just give you a quick list of these products. On Saturday, March 6th, the first one I'll do is going to be my command shell and scripting environment. That's going to feel a lot like the QL Super Basic, as well as its command shell, although more in a Mac-like windowing environment, and with a little bit of twist of Unix in there. It was originally called Climax and then sold as Climate. And so I'll be doing a review, just a rundown on that, and maybe look at a little bit of the code as well. And then the following week, on March 13th, I'm going to be talking about a product called Cron Manager, which was a cron tabs utility. The QL doesn't really have that, but it was its multitasking operating system that inspired it, because I could do it much easier on the QL than I could on the Mac. And in fact, the lessons I learned writing my command shell really taught me that, and so that was my exploration of running a faceless background sort of batch application on the Macintosh. And Don Crabb, who wrote the guide to System 7.5, actually that was one of his favorite products. He said it should be part of all System 7.5s at the time. And then on March 20th, I will talk about my most successful product, which was CPU Doubler. I had 2 versions of that, and it didn't sell well in the US, partly because of the product called SoftRAM that kind of lied to people in the Windows world, and it kind of turned people off to these doubling utilities, and I should have probably called it something different, and I'll go into that. But in that video, I'll actually show you how I designed it, its architecture, and then show you how it runs, and I'll even compare it a little bit to how it compared to RAM doubler, because there is some similarities in RAM doubler compressed space and I compressed time. So that was kind of cool, and that was definitely inspired by the QL and its multitasking operating system. In fact, I'll show you how you do task scheduling on the QL and how that got me to thinking of how I could improve running applications on the Macintosh. And in fact, you'll see that the interface has a very much of a QL look to it in terms of how you change process priorities. And then my final video will be on March 27th, and that will be more on CPU double. I'll go look at the code a little bit, because I think the March 23rd video will get too long otherwise. And then I will also look at a couple of smaller utilities that one small utility I wrote called Alias It, which was a multi-alias tool for the Macintosh. You could have like 3 or 4 things open up when you click that alias. And then some other ideas that I had at the time, a dynamic RAM disk that the QL has, and I wanted to add it to the Mac. So it's my opportunity to kind of share with you how I designed these applications and what went behind the scenes in creating them. It was a very small company, but it was very successful, especially with CPU doubler, which sold well in the foreign market, and I think was one of the best sellers in the Japanese market at one point. And also just to sort of highlight how the QL impacted, it's this little computer from the 80s. It gave me lots of great ideas that, inspired me to build up the Macintosh, because the Macintosh was a better hardware platform and was faster, and yet I really loved the operating system that QL had. So those are going to be the videos that I'm going to do starting this Saturday. In the meantime, on this video, I'm going to link a couple of videos that I did earlier, in the middle of last year, called Multitasking in the 80s, where I actually went and looked at the Macintosh's cooperative multitasking kernel and some of its weaknesses. And so I won't tag them as March and Tosh, because they weren't made in March. They were made, during the summer or early fall. But I will tag them in this video so you can check them out for yourself. So anyway, excited about March and Tosh. I'm really grateful that those folks ended up really organizing it, and I can participate in it because I organized QLvember, and it's hard to organize these things, so give those folks credit. And yeah, so that's all I have for you today. I hope you'll watch some of my videos, and just click on the March and Tosh tag and see everyone else's videos as well. Anyway, thanks for joining me today, and stay safe.